Hello, yous are beginning to come in. Just welcome. As you can see, we're just giving it a minute or two now as people join. We have a number of people signed up. I think it's nearly 50 signed up for this from all parts of the world. So we're just giving that a minute or two as people join to settle in. And I will repeat the welcome in a few moments. I hope you brought your sandwiches, your orange juice, you're checking your share options in the background, whatever you're doing, but we're looking forward to working with you for the next while. So the numbers are just joining nicely.
Yeah.
And you'll see William, he does have a microphone too, he can talk.
I can talk. I just look at the attendee list. So as the numbers going up, very popular today. And we have some people that we know already, which is great, and some new people. So hopefully we'll hear questions from both new and people that we know already.
And you'll see that we're recording, and you would have heard that coming in, because we're going to make sure that everybody who's here gets a recording of whatever it is we talk about. The two of us are going to chat about a number of things that we hope will be of real use to you. So people are still joining. So we'll give it another minute or so before we kick off. But don't worry, we will still end no later than 1:45. We'll stop talking. I think if I can get William to stop talking at about 1:30, that's what we're aiming to do. And so plenty of time for questions. There's a whole way in which that happens. But yeah, do you know?
I am glad I'm getting a bit of control over the amount of time I'm spending talking. I was on the radio last week and I got cut off. I was given 3 minutes and 3 seconds, and that was it.
Did you hear that? He was on the radio last week. Now, let's just drop that in there now. Yeah, I wasn't on the radio last week. I was actually doing the mediation training course of
course you were.
It was free to do the thing. Ah, how nice. Anyway, we have a really great number already in. So maybe we'll get going and just really make this really of value to you. And first of all, you're really welcome to this webinar from the Mediation Foundation of Ireland. We've been around for 10, 12 years now, doing a lot of work in the training space and training mediators, certifying mediators. We've been working with over 20 countries have been part of our program. We really want to particularly recognize those who are joining us from all the different countries. There's a good group of people from the international context. You're really welcome, as well as we've already said, people who have done the course already. So really thank you for your time. We realize it's valuable, so we want to make it really useful. We've come up with the 8 most common questions we often get asked. William's going to just take you through those in a moment, but just to let you know, there's an opportunity for you to interact. We'll be over and back, but let me stop talking and let William get going. Tell us, William.
Well, Luke, thank you very much for that. So what we plan to do today is give some of the insights there. Again, like we said before, we're going to speak for around 30 minutes or so. We'll answer questions then around 1:30 for 15 minutes. And again, we will hang around later on to discuss any other questions that you might have. So as you can see on the screen, there are lots of questions we get asked pretty regularly. So we're going to share some of our experience, some of our insights. And again, I'd like to introduce you to Luke. So Luke is the founding partner. Okay. He is a wealth of experience when it comes to mediation. He's probably one of Ireland's most high-profile mediators. He's an advanced mediator with the MFI, and he's also the creator of the Monahan resolution styles. It's a psychometric that we were both working on, so that's in development. More about that later on. Luke.
Okay, well now I'm going to have to try and match that for William before we get to the real meat and potatoes of the half hour with you, because William is a workplace mediator in particular, has a great specialization in workplace. We want to bring that through what we're going to talk about today. He's got a lot of academic and practical experience in mediation, which is a tremendous resource that he brings to all the programs as well as to his mediation. He's a leadership coach, and just has done so much work in helping people who are looking at how to develop their leadership to really find the pathways for them that really works, as well as a leadership development expert. And if we're careful, we might try to make sure he doesn't mention Lego serious play. He loves the old Lego. But anyway, for now, for here, apart from beating him at pitch and putt, he's really good as a mediator, and he's going to ask me a difficult question now in revenge, I think. William.
How about I start with our first question? So, Luke.
Why not?
So, a very, very open question we get asked quite a bit is, what is the mediation approach, and what does transforming conflict mean?
And it's something, as William said, we get asked a lot, is where's the place of mediation, particularly if we look through the lens of workplace. And there's all sorts of processes to resolve conflict. And I've been mediating for over 20 years now. And what I love about mediation, it is a way to move the conflict towards more resolution and constructive resolution. You know, we hear about this fear, sort of flight and freeze and all of that. We want to introduce another F called facilitate. Facilitate your conflict. Find a way that people feel heard and people find their solutions rather than them being imposed by somebody else through another process. Because other processes have their place, like arbitration and disciplinary procedures, but so too does a constructive process. And we have found that if the tools that we have available through trainings, such as what MFI does in terms of helping people not to fix problems, but to help others to find their solutions. My job is to facilitate, not to fix. And that's such a key piece to conflict being transformed, not just fixed, because people find their solutions that will work for them and be sustained. And our work has just been about empowering people, whether formally as a mediator or even using the mediation skills to do that. So do I get to ask you a tough question now?
Well, that'd be great if you could.
Okay. Well, again, we mentioned with the workplace, and I think, William, you give a lot of expertise there. What difference do you feel mediation makes in the workplace?
I think it's not just me, it's what the research says. Again, what the research says, it saves time, money, and relationships. So there's research done in the United States where 35% of managers' time is spent on team issues or relational issues. And again, here, if we think about that 35%, imagine how much more productive managers' time would be to focus on value add, to focus on goals for the organization. And again, what it would do, it would look at from an organizational point of view, is you have productivity, you have talent attraction, you have if you're trying to enhance your reputation as a company, all these things filter through if there's a toxic culture. So again, makes life better for everybody. So again, when we talk about employee engagement, but that's only from the team, the organizational lens. Look at it from an individual lens. So people are happy, healthier, there's more job fulfillment. And as we know, there's a direct correlation between employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction, and that flows through profits. So for example, we have a podcast done with Denise White-Hughes of Lidl, one of our clients. And what they did was they trained an independent mediation panel within Lidl, and they had huge benefits for that. So we'll be sending the links in the podcast to just give a flavor of that. But that's typically what it is. So speaking of the workplace then, Luke, a lot of people, I work in the area of leadership, as you were saying. Do you think mediation skills are transferable then into leadership?
And that's one of the things one of the things I really enjoyed is not just working in the narrow certification of mediators, but also working with people leaders, team leaders. And this morning I was working with a leadership team that were really having a lot of conflict, and they just wanted an hour with me this morning to look at how are they getting stuck, because they know, at least they knew they were getting stuck, which was tremendous. And one of the things that was really helpful in that mediation approach was that I just asked a few questions that opened up. Tell me more about that. You know, what is it that you think might be contributing to that? And asking each of them to reflect on that in a no blame context. And I think that's a really important thing. And you could just see through the hour people just beginning to trust, beginning to open up, because it's really important as a mediator, we create what they call psychological safety, that people, when they're working with a mediator, know that it is safe to talk about what I want to talk about and to be heard. I couldn't emphasize that enough, for people leaders to really listen. And can be sometimes tough, because you might say, I know what the solution is, I know what these people need to do, but they need to find that out themselves. Our job as a mediation approach, as mediators, is to facilitate them getting there, to helping that, as I did with that team this morning, just beginning, and we'll have more sessions. But what really helped was that they felt heard, they felt safe, and they begun to be honest and they begun to trust each other. Because any team, as you know, William, because we do so much work with teams, is trust is the foundation. And really, yeah, please.
Yeah, so I just people listening in here might be really curious about what's a very practical example. I think sometimes you tell an example about a principal and a teacher. That'd be a useful story to tell.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there was a principal and a deputy principal, and they were, big, large school, and they hadn't talked to each other directly in 3 months. So I was asked to come in, and there was real conflict, obviously, and they were only communicating through email. So you can imagine what the nature of the emails were beginning to look like. And when I go in, and once both people felt they were okay to work with me, because mediation is a voluntary experience, and that's really helps it. When people know they can say no, they often say yes. So it's not forced on them, it's not mandated, it's offered, encouraged. So, and what you do in the mediation approach is you see each of them individually, what we call the private meeting. And that's such a valuable thing, because they get to know what approach you take, and can they trust my conflict with you? And it was really interesting in those private meetings with each of them, it was very clear that there was a lot of misunderstanding had occurred. And what's interesting is the misunderstanding hadn't been clarified, they hadn't had a chance to talk that through. And as a mediator, you hear the story of both of them, and they were really angry with each other. Their relationship had really broken down, and there wasn't a sense from either of them that this could be fixed, but they were open to it. And that's the important thing. And once I heard both sides of the stories in that impartial way that a mediator does, that really creates that trust, bringing them together then to hear each other's perspectives, or as we say in mediation, their story, their perspective, what brings them here, what are their issues. And that's the key. That's the magic sauce of mediation, is that listening and exploring. The exploring, that's not probing. That's that difference, isn't it? It's the tone of voice, it's the questions. And that's one of the things we love doing on the course, is helping people to look at the range of questions that can be asked, but it's how you ask them and what questions are going to help and what questions are going to hinder. It's like giving people a vocabulary of being able to facilitate conflict constructively is what you're trying to do. And that's why, as William said, those skills are so transferable. And in that process, because they hear each other through the lens of the facilitator, I summarize back what I hear. So they're not talking at each other. They're telling their story through me. So being able to hear each other differently than before. And then the old penny drops. And I remember the principal saying, William, he said, but I didn't intend that at all. I was trying to help you out in whatever the issue was. And the deputy just coming back, oh, the difference to hear that it was a misunderstanding. I thought you were out to get me. And that takes a while. I'm really summarizing it very briefly there, but it's the breakthrough. If you don't rush it, it will come. If you rush it, you'll miss it or lose it. And we just talk about the timing of all of that. And that's where you begin to see the turning. And people are now ready to look at the issues they have, because they don't disappear. They just look at them differently. A great skill, and William is really great at talking about the reframing skill. It's such a valuable, transferable skill. I don't know if you want to say something about that, but when we did that, when we saw the issues, having had the breakthrough, people looked at their issues differently, and they were much less difficult to work through and to come to some really practical outcomes. And that's so often what happens in mediation. Back to yourself, William. Do you want me to ask another question, or do you want to talk about reframing, or what would you like to do? Let's have a look at where we are on the list. Are we making progress? Because I think
we are making progress, Luke. What I think we're halfway down.
Halfway
so
down,
I might go
good.
straight into what does the training involve. A lot of people might be curious to find out. So there's some people on here that have heard about this aspect, which is the certified course that we offer. And again, what's involved there is a 60-hour course in total. There are 40 hours online, which also know online is the synchronous piece. We're all here together, and it is fully immersive. There's very engaging, so we get feedback on that quite a bit. There's no sitting back on the sly and watching Netflix. In fact, if you want to think about Netflix, we will be handing out Oscars for your awards when you're doing your.
I knew he'd bring in the Oscar. I knew he'd bring in the Oscar. There you go. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and we love when people really get into character. We had one participant before that wore a baseball hat backwards and really got into character. Anyways, enough about that. A lot of people are concerned that it's very academic. Our approach is that we are knowledgeable, credible experts in the area of conflict. So again, here, this is where it's hugely practical. There's lots of practice sessions. And on top of that, then of the 40 hours where we're doing some delivery, you're doing some practice, you hear stories and experience from us, you get access to the members area. So outside of the training hours that we have, which is usually 9:30 to 4:30 on a Thursday and Friday, with an hour for lunch, I may add, very generous, and 20-minute coffee breaks in the morning and the afternoon. Thank you very much, Luke, for
I'm the one
that.
who insists on that. Yeah, he preferred 10 minutes and 30 minutes, but there you go.
So the online experience then has proved hugely beneficial for everybody involved. So many people kind of go, well, I'm not too sure about the online piece. It has really worked for people. It is so engaging and interactive. And again, that's just the synchronous piece. The asynchronous piece, which you learn at your own pace, is micro learning videos. So we cover a lot of content. You need a little reminder of, oh, what's this process, or what does reframing mean? We have done videos on that. We also have lots of resources available. We have podcasts, so you can get a flavor of what it would be like. And hopefully you're getting that sense today. And also what we do is there's sessions then that you do within your own time with others then, and you self-organize to do that. And those practice sessions help you build your confidence to become a better mediator. So again, that's a little about the training. A lot of people, you'll see the testimonials, a lot of people are quite surprised at how effective and interactive it is. So yeah, so that's that piece there.
And can I just add to that? I mean, I think it was a revelation to us, wasn't it, that when COVID occurred, that we obviously went online like so many others, and we thought we would be pivoting back to in person. But our learning was from the feedback was this is really working. What we try to do is really work on the rapport, that when you're on the training, you're part of a community. You're in a mediation training bubble for that sort of 5 to 6 weeks of those 2 days per week. So the relationships built, and some of you are on the call here now because I see Jeremy's there, and Jeremy's there, Sandra's there, Catherine's there, a few people that we know from previous courses, that it's how we create that sense of us, we're in this together, that sense of belonging. And there's great fun, but we're doing the learning. And again, the evaluation show again and again, online works, but also the practicing. The practicing is where I learned most. We get that again and again and again, because we want to give you competence, but we also want to give you confidence that you can see how this is going to work for you, so that when you're getting ready for the assessment and all that lovely good stuff, so that you have that credible certification. The International Mediation Institute has just been a great organization to work with, and I know Ivana might be on the call as well. It's just to recognize that certification gives you credibility wherever in the world, and we recognize this. We saw a little text there from Kenya. You're welcome. So just to recognize that we want to have something that is really robust, so that you know when you go from this course, you're good to go.
I might add to that we take feedback from our participants.
It's true.
It's so important to us. This is where the members area got created, the micro learning videos, all our extra resources all came from feedback. Every single time we run a course, we figure out how to improve it. And that's where we developed those podcasts with mediation pioneers such as Ken Cloak, Michael Lang, Cindy Noble. These people have 40 years plus experience. And again, the typical participant profile, we might talk about that. So Luke had just mentioned we have somebody in from Kenya here, different parts of Europe.
Yeah.
What are we, 23 now countries that
I
we
think
have?
it's 23 now, which is wonderful. And because the online has made that work, and the IMI, the International Mediation Institute, really were very proactive in seeing the value of it, because they evaluated programs across the world. And ours was right there at the top. We were leading into it. And just as William said, because we're constantly updating, constantly looking for new ways to connect the network, because we like to stay with people after they've done the program. And I think that's one of the things that people find helpful when they come in terms of that participant profile. Is this a program where I can get resources as I develop my career in this, or how I fit that in? So we have people, and William mentioned Lidl as an example, where they just have trained so many of their HR people, and they keep coming back because they can see the cost benefit analysis of handling conflict well. Because conflict, like death and taxes, is going to happen. Can we get better at moving conflict, bending is what I say, bending the arc of conflict towards constructive resolution? Because we want people who are working together to find ways to get through and break through to ways that they can sustain a good professional relationship into the future, not just a quick fix, but something that really gets to those deeper issues. We also have people who are pivoting to a new career, who might have, been in an organization for quite some time and know they have skills, those human relationship skills that are really going to underpin a good mediation approach, whether that's from a legal career, because we get lots of solicitors and barristers and a couple of judges doing the course. We also get loads of HR people. We get loads of people who are team leaders, who just have a lot of people interaction and know that's the magic sauce of getting the best out of my team. If I can create that sense of us and trust and handle conflict well, because it's not about avoiding conflict. It's about going through conflict in a healthy way, so that we get better decisions, so that we get better knowledge of each other and trusting each other, and a better understanding of ourselves and others. So again, people pivoting career might just want to see how could that meld with perhaps a bit of coaching, because coaching, mediation, psychotherapy, social work, all of those careers find mediation is a lovely piece to sit alongside a suite of skills and offerings that you may have. People in schools obviously use it a lot.
It's all walks of life, Luke, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've had people who in the planning office, we had people who were fishermen, all walks of life. So again, it's all professions. Some people think it's just for HR people or the legal sector. It's all walks of life. And speaking of all walks of life, then we have organizations. We mentioned Lidl. Did we mention the WRC? But other organizations we've worked with.
Yeah, the WRC, like the Workplace Relations Commission. So they offer mediation as a very important offering in their conflict resolution suite. So they have sent all their people to us for that training. So to really build that constructive approach to conflict. And I know Graphite HR have used just universities. I see some people here today from DCU, TCD, so those people who are in those people-facing roles really find it helpful and keep sending people back, because again, they see the value of it, not because they just want to do a course, but they see the concrete value, the practical application of these skills. How do we listen to people well? How do we give people the tools to solve issues themselves? Because one of the things we want people to be able to do when you've been through a conflict, even through a mediation, that we want people to be able to apply those skills again and again and again, so that the next time, it's one of the questions we ask towards an end of a mediation. I think I was doing last week, 2 people had come to their agreement. And one of the questions I asked was, well, the next time you two have a conflict, how might you handle it differently? And because we want them, to go out there and say, okay, we got an agreement there, but we also got some skills that we can apply the next time. Because we don't want people to come back, the next time we had a row, it was just back to square one. What was the point of all of that? It's really important for us that this is a learning and development experience, as well as a way to resolve an issue. So pathways, maybe the pathways to mediation training.
So
somewhere else you want to go.
Yeah, I might build on that and then move into the pathways.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think what we're very passionate about is empowering people with that conflict toolbox. And again, and other organizations would be Deloitte from the corporate side of things, or even Sport Ireland, many different organizations we worked with, and they appreciate then our different ways of pathways into mediation. So we've talked about here about being on the certified course. And again, if you are interested in that, obviously Fiona has that in the chat function there. If you want to find out more, we have a huge amount of video testimonials there that this training is both highly effective, make people confident and competent. Again, here, if you want to take it to the next level, we have very exciting news. I seem to be getting all the lovely stuff here to announce.
Yeah, he got the nice questions.
I got all the lovely questions.
I want to talk to Fiona about this afterwards. Anyway, they don't want to listen to us. Go on, you talk.
They might need a mediator between us. Yeah. How about that, Luke?
Yes.
So we are launching a diploma. We're signing it, very excited, with the American College in Ireland. And again, that has Middle States accreditation. So Middle States accreditation, what is that? Well, Ivy League colleges have Middle State accreditation, the likes of Columbia, Cornell, Penn State, New York University, Georgetown. So again, very exciting for us if you want to take that to the next level. Again, we have, and we mentioned here, Ivana, welcome to the call. Thank you very much for joining us. So the IMI, the International Mediation Institute, we have the QAP program, and we can give more details there later on if anybody's interested in becoming a qualified advanced practitioner within that. And also the MII, the Mediation Institute of Ireland, the advanced member. So we have many different pathways. And on top of that, we will be advancing to a master's in the future. That's more of a 3-year plan at the moment. What we really want to do is support member organizations such as the IMI, which we hope everybody becomes registered with. So, Luke, that is a little bit about that. But what I want to do is we're talking about the future there. So again, what's the future for, and we get asked this a lot, for people exploring as an option for work?
Yeah, and I think there's those people who want to explore the option for work within the organization, perhaps that they're currently working, and there are those people who want to pivot to it being part of a wider offering in terms of whether it's coaching or psychotherapy or legal advice or HR advice. And that's where it sits. And one of the things we do on the program, we think it's very important not just to give people an accreditation and say goodbye, is that we're with you for the journey. So one of the things we cover on the program is to help, let's take some time to look at the various pathways that might work for you. So you could begin to tailor what's your next step. And just giving people the experience of how each of us have started the business. One of the things we've added recently to the members area is a number of videos from people who have developed their business in particular areas. So again, that people can see, okay, that's a way I could go, that's a way I could go. The other thing we encourage people to do a lot, as I say, we have Jeremy and Sandra here as an example of that on the call today. People who meet each other on the course and say, do you know what, you have something that I could do that could support you, and you have something that you do that could support me, and perhaps we can partner up in our business and begin to build a profile together. And so we want to create those opportunities and stay with those people. So, and again, with mediation, people, it's not just a fancy website. People want to know who you are. So it's important to think of ways of getting out there that work for you, but that let people know this is a skill, this is a certification that you now have. So if you're pivoting to a sort of self-employed way or in a small partnership, it's really important to think through how you position yourself, how you let people know, how you maybe be able to do short courses on conflict resolution skills. Because one of the things you'll get from a course like this, or from anybody else, is how to talk about conflict constructively, how to give people those skills. So we give people a range of ways to do that. It's really important to feel, yes, it's a build, but as long as there's a plan to go with that building, so that you feel, yeah, I can see how it fits internally in the organization. It's also really important, whether it's with Lidl or WRC, we talk about how are you going to build the profile for mediation in your organization, because we know there's lots of conflict out there, and we want to help people point that conflict in the direction of mediation back to what William said earlier on about the stats, about the research that tells us that when people enter mediation with an open mind, it really can very often lead to a good outcome for them, where they are in charge of deciding what's going to happen next and their solution. So there's lots of pathways, and that's what we want to work with people and keep that sense of community, that network. You'll see that in our materials, how to join the MFI network and LinkedIn and other places just to stay connected. So now that leaves the last good question, because we're around the half-one point about the future of mediation, perhaps in the old workplace, William, or anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, speaking of the workplace, think about, we talked about coaching before. So coaching years ago was seen as a remedial action. If you were getting a coach, it was like you were in the bold person corner. And again, look at it now, it's seen as a status symbol. People actually tell people, I have a coach. So I believe mediation in Ireland is still in its infancy as a profession. Saying that, because it is enacted into legislation in Ireland and other parts of the world, like Dubai that we were talking about, Ivana there later on, she helps a lot of countries out in helping Ireland with the mediation council there. It's becoming more and more recognized as a profession. So it's very much legitimized. And with that in mind, then, that once it becomes legitimized, then it's a bit like any profession then that it establishes over time. You know, a funny anecdote there, you know, a barber shop, Luke, and
Right.
outside a barber shop,
I need to go to one. Yeah.
well,
Sorry.
let's not mention that. I didn't want to say on the call, but do you ever see the red and white sign outside the barber
Yes.
shop? Well, the red and white sign, what that originally was they used to hang out towels that if you did dentistry, and the towels was when the towels were washed, the white towels was blood all over them. And this was this let people know that this barber actually did dentistry. Now, you think about the profession of dentistry, it used to be done by a barber. Would you go to your barber to get a tooth pulled? No, you wouldn't. So again, it is something that's being developed. And this is why it's so important that while we do the foundation course here, this is why we really want to advance this as a profession. So again, there are going to be mediation skills. So again, I talk about this on the podcast quite a bit about how do you future-proof yourself against AI? If you are a leader there, or you want to add value there, where is your focus and energy going to be? Is that 35%? Let's go back to how we started this. If your time, 35% of your focus energy is emphasized somewhere else, you're going to be adding more value. So this is why it's so important to have that conflict resolution skills. So the Q&A,
Q&A, I see one here. Let me just open a few of those, and anyone feel free to add. And you know, that's we want to get those opportunities. The first question I see here is, what part of this program do you think is the most valuable? Well, for me anyway, it's always what we hear back: the practice, the practice, the practice. It is about giving people the confidence and the competence to know, oh boy, I can do this. We always have this thing. It's a bit like learning to drive a car again, because we're giving you skills that you sort of know about. I mean, we all listen, we all summarize, but it's in what order and how we do those things that we spend some time at. And what's great in the course, that's why it's lovely to have that spread over those number of weeks, Thursday, Friday, then Thursday, Friday the following week, and then Thursday, Friday, because people get a chance to, that's what that is. When we say to people, turn off your fix-it brain, for example, because we want you to really understand where the other person is coming from, to really hear them. And we give them different ways of listening, different ways of summarizing. And what's great is that people then get a chance to practice that and see how they're getting on, and you know, get feedback from each other, because that trust we build in the group, where people give each other feedback and do it in such a constructive way. But it's so valuable because you get to apply it immediately. You're mediating from day one of the course. So you're not sitting back, as William said, you're on looking at Netflix or looking at PowerPoints. You're on. It's an accelerated learning experience. That's my sense of the most important part.
The valuable part to me, that it's personal development with a professional development lens. These are life skills. So many people that's transformed their own personal relationships or professional relationships, they're able to see things in a different way. And again, that's something that I would believe is most valuable. Now, some people are asking, is this very academic, this course, and what kind of assignments are there? I can reassure people this is not very academic. It's a very practical lens. However, we might go through the what's expected when it comes to assignments.
Yeah, because it is important to say, because it is a robust course and that's been through the audit procedures of both the International Mediation Institute and the Mediation Institute of Ireland to ensure that when you pass, because the big issue, the big part of the assessment piece is the role play, the practice you will do that's videoed, that is looked at by one of our independent assessors, that gives you feedback on where you did well and how you could do better, and our pass rate happily is 92% or above, that when people put into practice the skills they've been working on, they demonstrate that in that hour, they reflect on it themselves in a form that you fill in, but also you get the feedback from the assessor. So it's a really robust certification because you go through that process. I think it was something about the assignment. The assignment is not an academic piece, it's a reflective piece. It's just something that gives you the chance to talk about some aspect of mediation that might help you in building your career, just to say that's a really important piece to add. So, and it's just recording then in your learning journal, isn't there, William? A learning journal and a practice journal.
What I would say is the assignment here is not to be academic in nature. So again, you'll hear the podcast I did with Michael Lang about being mediation as a reflective practitioner, and he's written a wonderful book on this. And a big part of mediation is self-awareness, and then it becomes to mediation mastery. Do you know each time you ask a question or each time you intervene in some way that there's a skill to that you're doing it to advance the parties or create some sort of awareness? So again, it really isn't that academic side of things, it's to enhance your emotional intelligence and that reflection in action as a mediator, so you can avoid missteps there. So that's a sense of what it is. So you have the learning log each day, we have the audit document where you do the assessment, we have a short essay. So because it's online, how would you do this in person? So again, there's the different aspects that we'll go through on the course, and we help people through this.
Yeah, and I think it's that piece that's really great, is the self-awareness. And again, people say that in that, let's say, the learning journal, which is just recording your main insights each day. And it's really lovely to see people see, oh, look what I had on day 1 and look what I had on day 6. And it's so helpful because as a mediator, I just find me being self-aware of what's going on for me when I'm mediating some people. Because I need to know, because even though we're trying to be impartial, we know that we're triggered or drawn in one way or another, where we have a bias here or a bias there. What's important is that we're aware of it, that we're not being controlled by a bias, that we are aware of it and we can compensate. And I just find that so helpful, that when I'm going through and using the framework, the 6 stages to the mediation process that we talk about on the course, that I know where I am on that and I know what's going on for me, so that I'm more available for what the 2 participants need. You know, and it's really important that as a mediator, I think one of the sort of 2 things I'd say, it's the importance of humility, because it's about them, not me. And the more the mediation process works through to the final stages when they're looking at solutions, it is so much more about them finding their solutions. We become less important. They become center stage. And the other one is, it's an art, not a science. And I love that about mediation, because you're all the time trying to figure out what's the right time to ask this question. What's a good way to do the summary now? And not aiming for perfection, just aiming for what's right, what's going to serve the people in the mediation. That's so helpful just to see it that way. Conscious, we've just got 5 minutes left. So any final, please feel free, any quick questions anybody wants to ask.
Two questions here, Luke. One is on career opportunities, and then the most surprising people say on the program. We might start with that and then we'll finish with career opportunities. So surprising part of this program, what do you think? What are the most surprising parts?
Surprising parts, I think it is that the amount of people who say, I thought it was going to be so straightforward and I didn't think I was going to learn as much. And I think that's what people say. And the other thing with that is I use this now all the time. I use this with my kids. I've heard parents say, I now know how to have a better dialogue with my kids about something. And it's fascinating. And people see the application of the skills, and it's quite a revelation to people. I think I love the fact that people, it's like little light bulbs are going off, all the time. And that self-awareness piece, and wow, I can use this in this situation, That's great.
Again, there is that sense of community and camaraderie, isn't it? People
Mm.
really enjoy each other's company. They're
Mm.
really supportive. And
Mm.
again, there's that psychological safety that's there. It's fun. It's
Mm.
engaging. You can be yourself. It's okay to struggle. We know
Mm.
mediation is hard just to get it. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about that those surprising parts. And again, what we might do is we might finish up on this because we'll be out of time shortly. Career opportunities. So
Mm.
there are many different career opportunities. So we mentioned before somebody who specialized in planning disputes. And that was their niche. There's
Mm.
obviously commercial mediation, there's family
Mm.
mediation. So unfortunately, during COVID, there was a lots of relationships put under strain, and those
Mm.
relationships didn't survive. And again, family mediation services, then there is a huge amount there. We've talked
Mm.
about the WRC, we've
Mm.
talked in-house, then you mentioned graphite
Mm.
there. So
Mm.
organizations like that do a lot of workplace mediation.
Mm.
We have the likes of Lidl, where it's become part of a skill set for
Mm.
someone. So again, in the public service of a mediation panel, there's many different opportunities
Mm.
there. Luke.
Yeah, I think we've had a number of hospital groups also use the program Bon Secours, a few other hospital groups, because they just see the value. Because we've done a lot of work with teams in the health service, looking at how, because things are so immediate and urgent. And it was interesting because I was working with a school group last week, and they were saying how everything is so, and I was able to use the experience I had working with conflict in a ICU team with a team in schools, and just realizing, oh, we all have to triage, we all have to prioritize our issues, and using those skills of, we need, even in a very busy environment, to take time to listen. And the way that, when we look at those skills, and we can see in whatever sector you happen to be in, construction, health, schools, whatever it is, legal or otherwise, these skills have value, have real value in how you connect with people, in how you give people the chance to work through conflict that some people find so draining, so all-consuming, so deadening. And to be able to give people the possibility, the facilitative space, the safe space to know there is a way to work through this. You don't have to be identified by your conflict. There is a way to work through it. It is tough. Mediation is not an easy approach. It is a really constructive way to deal with difficult things. And it's a lot easier, back to what William said earlier on, it's a lot easier sometimes than the legal route, which we need to know is there, but we don't want to rush to it. We want to offer this more constructive way. And the difference it makes to me as a mediator, when I see people finding their way through, when people find their solutions and say, yeah, I think I can live with that. That's pretty damn good.
I think we need to be honest as well, that it's a portfolio career as well, because if you're mediating all the time, that takes a lot of personal, mental and emotional energy.
Yeah.
And let's think about it this way. If you start any business, it's going to be a slow build. So a big part of what it is getting the mediation profile out there. Now, if you look at mediation, HR policies and employee programs, this is where at the moment mediation probably takes up maximum 2 or 3 lines of what it is. So this is what we'd encourage more and more large organizations, is develop a mediation panel and to have a full mediation policy, not 2 or 3 lines in an employee handbook, something more. So again, that's something that we would do on the course. You talk about how do you build up your mediation profile, and a bit like our learnings there is that constant development of that. So there's another question after coming in.
Yeah, and we'll just do that final one, and then people feel free to move on, and you have your things to do, you have your lunch to have, but it's been wonderful working with you. But we'll answer that question from our friend in Africa, because we've had many people working in Africa do the course because of the time difference isn't so great with somebody from Nigeria at the moment. So really easy to join with that. So yeah, should we finish? Go on, you do a final.
So Ireland, so again, if you're in Africa, they're actually one of the most important people to give us feedback was from Africa. This is where the micro videos were there.
Yeah, she was from. She was wonderful, Frances.
Shireen
Francis. That's right, Shireen.
And she worked for the cross.
The Red Cross, I think. Red Cross.
Yeah, the Red Cross, that's it. So again, there with people from Ghana, all parts of Africa, Kenya included, I think, in Nigeria. And again, you dial in, there's sometimes little time differences, but apart from that, it's quite good. You have a strong internet connection and we're good to go. It's really beneficial. A lot of people have developed their own businesses there. So we connect with lots of people through LinkedIn, and we can see how people have advances. There we had the lady from Lebanon as well.
That's right.
She has gone strength to strength.
Yes, we see her on LinkedIn. So we've had so many, as I say, over 23 countries at this stage. So let us let you go, but really want to thank you for your time. For the time you've given us to listen. Hopefully you've got something there that's of value to you. Fiona will be in touch with the video, with other materials. So if there's something that occurs to you the next day or two, just get in touch again, and we hope we'll meet some of you and work with some of you. But thanks again for your time, and lovely to see those people returning that we know already. Thanks for your time. Okay. How are we doing, William?
Thanks, everybody. We had 20 participants for finish and more take part in that Q&A. Sorry we didn't get round to all the questions. We just didn't have time, and that's it from us.
Thank you. Thank you.